Well, folks, thanks so much for tuning in. As you can see, we're in a different location today as I'm traveling around doing presentations, different part of the country. But thanks for tuning in. A little bit later getting going here today with some other items that we had to deal with in the backdrop in the studio. And thanks for the calls, concerns coming in, asking if there is going to be a broadcast today. Thanks for your concern. Yes, there is. And here it is. I want to start right off. Stay tuned today because we've got some very interesting items that we're going to amaze you. Some comments from Jeff Bezos about his organization, a little bit of talk on SpaceX, what's going on in Iran, and talking about Harrison Ford saying one of the dumber things I've heard in a while. Anyway, let's start right off by looking back. The regular watchers and regular listeners to Stockwell Day-to-Day News, you will know that we predicted some time ago that in the Kentucky race, this is important for Americans, also Canadians and others, kind of an interesting thing to observe. People wondering if Trump's power among his fellow Republicans is getting stronger or weaker. And as you know, Thomas Massey, who has voted against everything that Republicans wanted to do over the last 4 years, so definitely seen as anti-Trump, was very popular, and but winding up in the race of his life in Kentucky and going against somebody not that well known, but somebody who had the support of Donald Trump. And Trump, of course, was against Thomas Massey because Massey voted against everything that the Republicans wanted to pass. And as we predicted, Thomas Massey lost. He was defeated. So interesting to note that going forward. I want to jump right at the start of the podcast to something Harrison Ford said. You know, a really good example here, Harrison Ford, of what, remember it was Ricky Gervais said a number of years ago when he was hosting the Oscars. He told them all just to come and get their little prizes, take their little toy and go home and stop making idiots of themselves by trying to make great political proclamations. And very interesting to see Harrison Ford, who I always liked him, well, of course, as most my age did when he was first in Star Wars. And then, the guy's a very good actor. And he was speaking at the Arizona State University. He had been asked to be the guest speaker there, as often happens at these university settings. At graduation time, they get well-known people, well-known celebrities. And he said, quote, are you ready for this? He said that Donald Trump is the greatest criminal in history. He doesn't know of any greater criminal in history. Now, the reason he could get away with saying that, I assume, is because the students there, all well-intended and smart students and everything else, but they obviously have never studied history or never been presented with history in, certainly in university or in all their years from K to 12. So he's a greater criminal than Hitler, Very interesting. A greater criminal than Chairman Mao, who led the communist China revolution and is responsible for the deaths of millions and millions of people. A greater criminal than Jack the Ripper. I mean, you could go on, but what an insanely stupid, historically vacuous comment for him to make, and a little bit of sort of a reflection on where things are at these days, unfortunately, in our universities. And the supreme leader, good time to talk about this, just yesterday, supreme leader who is in Iran, who is purported to still be alive, and that's Mossadegh Khamenei. And there are reports he's alive. Nobody's actually seen him. We know he's had a leg blown off. We know his face was physically deteriorated considerably when he was recently blasted away in an attack some months ago. They say he's still alive. And he has come out to say, and it's been posted, that he's saying that the situation in Iran, he has said exactly what I've been saying, as regular viewers and watchers would know on this show, that this is a religious war. This is a jihad. This is a war in which all Iranians, I don't think he's done a poll on this one, are prepared to die. This is a war in which he wants to annihilate anybody who opposes them, evaporate, I would assume, using nuclear weapons. And yet people are still reluctant to speak out or say anything or go against the Iranian regime. So there he is, the leader, also purported to be gay. Not that that's any big deal, but it's funny he would be able to get away with being gay in Iran, of course, where Unfortunately, they hang or kill gays. Many times they hang them from cranes so everybody can see. And yet, Europe and much of the Western media and Canadian and U.S. media really want to see the U.S. and Israel lose. And they, in this war on Iran, all the U.S. and Israel want to see the regime declare that they will stop pursuing a nuclear weapon. That's all. This war stops the instant they say that. But unfortunately, the Iranian regime is not willing to do that, and they continue to hold hostage millions of their own citizens, killing thousands of them, and a terrible situation. So we'll watch and see what happens there. One thing that's not largely in the news is the fact that the EU, the European Union, has agreed now to the trade demands of Donald Trump. He's threatened them with 25% tariffs, and they've agreed to do a trade deal. That's getting some mention in mainstream media, but not an awful lot. And I would think that that's a major step, a major concession. I would have thought it would be front page news, but apparently not. And the EU from Brussels also warning China and also stating to China that China has got to back off in terms of a number of their illegal trade processes that they put in place, the fact that they don't pay their workers, the fact that they continue to hold over 1 million Muslim Uyghurs hostage. And so for it's almost a first, the EU agreeing to the U.S. trade deal and speaking out of Brussels against China. Well, another area of concern, we talked about this, and it's the development of AI, which of course the debate is raging. And you've heard me on the podcast, myself and others, saying overall AI is going to yield and is yielding phenomenal benefits to the human race, not just along the idea of how medical science can be speeded up and checked, and health science, but environmental, geographic, every way you can imagine. And yes, some people are being displaced from jobs, and historically down through the ages, anytime there's been a breakthrough, whether it's the discovery of fire or the discovery of the wheel, there were people when the wheel was discovered who were saying this is going to, put people out of work who carry emperors around in a carriage on poles and carry rich people around. The discovery of the wheel is going to put those people out of work. And yes, it did. Of course, the discovery of the wheel was beneficial hugely to the human race, but people were displaced. And it was the same, obviously, with the discovery of equipment. And now with AI, there are going to be some displacements. There are some concerns that have to be monitored for sure. But what you're getting, because of mainstream media being culturally Marxist and not wanting to see the private sector move ahead, mainstream media does not want to, just like most in universities, do not want to see advancements to the human race. They want humans and countries and nations to be controlled by just a few people, and they don't want to see great strides ahead in economies. And what that is causing now in many areas in the United States, not so much, a little bit in Canada, not quite as much, you're getting a local opposition to the building of the data centers that produce the AI, because these data centers they're going to require huge amounts of electricity, and some, until they develop it, some are going to require large amounts of water. They're already working around these challenges, but you have Republicans now joining the Socialist Democrats in regional areas and state areas, saying we should put a freeze on data centers. Nancy Mace, who's a Republican representative from South Carolina, is proposing a freeze on data centers. One thing to keep in mind, China is not freezing the development of data centers. Russia is not freezing the development of data centers. Neither are many countries in the Middle East. And so if we want to accept the, I would say, caveman-like, the prehistoric thinking that went into Canada and the United States, where mainly in Canada, where they said years ago, we believed the lie of the extreme environmentalists who said we were all going to disappear in environmental disaster, and so we had to stop refining oil and refining liquid natural gas, and so other countries leapt ahead, and countries like Russia are able to continue to hold the European Union hostage, take money from the European Union because European Union needs Russian LNG, and the Russians are able to take that money money and continue to kill Ukrainians. The whole thing is insane that we bow down to leftist panic about these things. Yes, we have to be concerned about the environment. So the same thing is going to happen if we're not careful. We will fall behind in the development of AI, and we will be displaced. We will be outpaced and outrun by countries like China, which will use AI, let's face it, not for always wonderful reasons. So hopefully we're going to get some common sense restored to this area. But now Republicans also wanting to put a hold on the development of AI centers. I want to switch to something you've heard of. You may have heard of Cars for Kids. Cars for Kids, a hugely successful operation that's been going on for many years, in which people donate their cars, and the cars get sold or used for scrap, and the money, they say, goes to help kids. And recent analysis into Cars for Kids have found that, not that it's a big deal, but it is primarily a Jewish-run agency, and that some of the money goes to help kids in Israel and Jewish kids and Jewish day schools. So the IRS and other tax agencies in different countries are slamming down on this. Now, look, I haven't studied into where all the money goes. I'm not commenting on that. What I am saying, in Canada now, it's being barred. Canada's own taxation agency is barring Cars for Kids because the money is going to Jewish operators and maybe Jewish causes. Okay, set aside that argument. They have barred that. But on the other hand, we look now for a number of years, many of us, and actually agencies, both Jewish and non-Jewish, all around Canada and around the world, have been asking for organizations that send money to Hamas so that Hamas can continue their written constitutional goal to kill Jews everywhere, to kill Jewish children, and to evaporate Israel. We can't seem to get in Canada our tax agency to say no more money to the United Nations Work Relief Agency. That's what it's called, UNRWA. So when they found out for Cars for Kids that money was going to Jewish folks, boom, they slammed that down in a hurry. But money going from Canadian taxpayers straight to the pockets of Hamas, to their ongoing killing and past killing fields, no, Canada's not willing to move very quickly, if at all, on that. Well, Jeff Bezos was just in an interview. Jeff Bezos, of course, the one of the main owners of the shares of Amazon, one of the wealthier guys in the world. And he was being quizzed, taking on the whole issue of billionaires. It's these nasty, rotten billionaires that are destroying the world. And he made some good points. He said, his own for-profit organization actually does even more than his multi-million dollar non-profit organizations, which fund all kinds of charities, not just in the U.S., but around the world. And he talks and goes in great detail about what Amazon has been able to do for millions of people, providing jobs, providing money, providing, Amazon, we can't even think of the positive values of that. And he was kind of looking with interest at the fact that left-leaning people, liberals in Canada, Democrats in the United States, and Labor in Great Britain want to slam down billionaires. Remember, billionaires have that value because the shares they own in their company are worth over $1 billion. And you shut that down, you shut down untold other nonprofits that they fund, millions of jobs, etc. I hope people give their heads a shake, stop listening to the foolish mainstream media, culturally Marxist media, which is always trying to dump on people who make a lot of money. And by the way, as these companies improve, so do the pension funds that they support. Pension funds buy shares in successful companies so that the pension funds can earn money to support people who are on pensions. So we need to continue, especially with Gen Z and with young people, to show that linkage. And then just point to countries that don't allow billionaires to exist, that don't allow billion-dollar companies to exist. Look at Cuba, no pension funds of any sort. Look at Laos, look at North Korea, look at countries around the world that are communist or strongly socialist. They don't allow people to make tons of money and then to use it to help other people. Their standard of living is much lower than countries that are free market and allow those things to happen. Bezos also made an interesting comment about the film that Melania did. Because I saw the movie, my wife and I went to see it. I thought it was okay. My wife found it a little more fascinating, and it's an interesting film. But if you listen only to mainstream media, you'd think it was a complete and utter disaster, because the hatred towards anything to do with Trump or anything to do with Melania is just it's wild. It's just based on blind hatred. Anyway. It was $16 million that it earned coming out of the gate, but more importantly than that, it's been one of the top revenue generating films on Prime Video. After, like any film, gets out of the theaters, goes on to Prime Video, doing very well there. Bezos saying that that film was a good business decision. Anyway, for those of you who are just haters by instinct, we really can't help you too much with that. Check it out, not a bad film. Well, the other thing I'm looking at with FIFA, this is the international, of course, the World Cup of soccer, or football as they call it, around the world, and I'm getting I'm starting to question, getting a little weary of the bill that's going to go to taxpayers. I'm thinking in Canada, but it's also in the U.S., but just on the Canadian one, there are going to be 13 games in and around Canada, Vancouver and Toronto mainly. These games are going to cost the taxpayer in Canada over $1 billion to put on these games. Now, I want you to think about it for a minute. First of all, I love sports, love professional sports, love sports themselves, and I don't begrudge the fact that many, many athletes are multimillionaires, if not billionaires, and so are the owners. The average soccer player, the average football player in one of the top clubs in England makes $7.6 million a year. $7.6 million a year. In Germany, for instance, they make $3.4 million a year. So the football players, the soccer players that are playing, are fabulously rich already. I don't begrudge that at all. And the owners of these clubs, Manchester United, for instance, is a business operation. It's a soccer club, it is worth $9 billion. $9 billion. Go to a country that's less wealthy, look at another famous team, AC Milan. It's worth $1.6 billion. So you've got billion-dollar owners, you've got multi-million-dollar players, and taxpayers are getting hit with over $1 billion just to fund 13 games in Canada. While the money, the registration, the tickets, the broadcast rights, all of that goes to the multi-million-dollar owners. And I'm saying, why are we doing that? Let's enjoy it. Let's have let's watch those games, but let's let the billionaires, instead of saying there should be no billionaires allowed on the planet Earth, let these billionaires cover the costs and let us all enjoy watching and even paying to go to the games. For those of you who are fans of Schlitz beer, Schlitz, a very famous beer, it's like 120 years old, closing down. And they've had continual financial problems. And interesting, when you look at their history, one of the biggest hits on their income goes back as far as the 70s. They never really recovered when they thought they would save money by changing the recipe that gave Schlitz beer its famous taste, and it actually altered the taste. They never really recovered from that. Folks, if you're going after consumers, you got to try and soak more money for consumers, and your product is less valuable to consumers, you will go out of business. The market takes care of itself. That will happen. I just want to close out on the whole area of anxiety and kids being under anxiety and increased anxiousness, and this is it's a fact. Leading to all kinds of problems, and we'll talk about Gen D, we'll say 10 to 25-year-olds. A very famous science publication, it's been around for decades, it's called Science Direct, and I'll refer you, if you want the citation on this, you want to look it up later, Volume 3, Issue 3 of Science Direct magazine, a study of 10-year-olds to 25-year-olds, right? So you're in that range of 10 to 25 years old. And this is it's a longitudinal study. It's been going on for 25 years. They studied 340,000 10 to 25-year-olds and found that anxiety levels and levels of suicidal ideation substantially below for those in that age group who pray, who believe in God, who talk to Jesus, and who acknowledge these spiritual realities, anxiety levels, suicidal ideation levels way down. Something to think about. I guess that's what it means when Jesus himself, when was on earth, it's recorded that he said, cast your cares on me. Cast your anxieties on me. Let me carry them for you. Some thoughts to think about, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you tomorrow.